meaning it goes with a cycle. And that raises a very important point. President Jaggi a few days ago mentioned, don't worry with these people who are talking about unemployment. The US has high unemployment right now. Right? Gil Teixeira made the same point at a public meeting, not a rally, the public meeting in Kitty. Things bad in the US. Well, the US unemployment is 9.1%. And US poverty rate has increased. Well, that is true. Now there's a fundamental difference, of course. I don't even have to tell you this between the United States and Guyana. Well, one is totally different. One is a whale, and the other one is an atom, right? If you want to put it that way. And the other thing is the U.S. economy, the most dynamic economy on the planet. Let's face it. But a large part of the poverty increase in the U.S. and a large part of the unemployment increase recently is driven by a cyclical component. Meaning, when you have a bad year, when you're in a recession, both poverty and unemployment will rise. But in Guyana, people are unemployed for years. We don't know. People can't find jobs. So the point I'm trying to make, it is a poor comparison. I'm amazed that such senior people would make those comparisons because the depth of poverty in Guyana is very high. So if somebody in the U.S. is thrown into the poverty line by American standards, which is $24,000 US a year, by the way, if a family in America makes $24,000 US and they have 4 kids, they're considered in the poverty line. So when you have a recession, those people, you have an increasing number of families. And when times improve, they get jobs again. But in other words, the depth of poverty is serious. If you are in poverty and you're in Port Morant, and I went to New Amsterdam yesterday, it's really bad out here, especially with the issue with the bridge and so on. It's really bad out here. So the depth in which you live in poverty is deep. The World Bank talks about the depth of poverty. Guyana's depth of poverty is higher than a poor person in America. There's no comparison. Then in the United States, you have the churches giving out a lot of aid to families and people, right? You have a social security program. You have unemployment benefits. Obama increased it to 1 year. So if you're unemployed, you'll get money for 1 year from the state. We have none of those, and as you can see recently, it was reported last week that for the first time, NIS had a deficit this year. And if NIS has that first time in the history, right? So if NIS keeps having deficits, then by 2018 it will become insolvent, bankrupt. And the government has not mentioned anything. They had a chutney party last night, and not one of them mentioned NIS. This is a disgrace. It is really disgraceful, right? I mean, as an economist, I can tell you it's disgraceful, right? So the actuarial studies showed by 2018 NIS is done. Okay, so what's going on, right? I'll move on. So what I want to talk about a little bit now is why is this rate of growth so slow? Well, this chart tells you that story. I'll talk a little bit about that chart. Now the red line that is sloping down, I started data from 1993. And I downloaded these numbers from the Bank of Guyana, and I created this chart, and this can be verified by anyone. Now, the blue bars are the government's public investment. That's the amount of money the government is spending divided by the GDP. You have to scale it by GDP, okay? And the red line that is downward, that it comes down, is the private investment rate in Guyana. So I'm comparing in that chart private investments as a percentage of GDP and government investment as a percentage of GDP. The blue is government, the red is private. So what trends you have here? What are you seeing? You're hearing about all these businesses opening and so on. Right? What's the data telling you? Well, the private investment rate in Guyana is declining. Okay? And it's declining almost monotonically, as they say in mathematics. Okay? Alright? You don't need to blink. But the trend is that government investment is increasing. Okay? Now, if we cannot get the private investment rate to where it was by 93, which was about 40%, the chart somewhat cut it off. well then we will continue to grow at 1.95%. Now, for us to grow this economy, I'd say, by my calculations, we have to raise it back to like 45% to get 7, because during the few years that Hoyt had it growing 7%, Hoyt had it up to like 44%. We have to get it up there. Granted that the Hoyt years was a period of transformation, so we don't want, so there was a period of change, sorry. As I said, we have never transformed this economy yet. It's yet to be done in spite of all these years since independence. None of the two major political parties transformed this country, right? And I think I give you my definition of what the literature's definition of transformation is. So we have trouble here in the House, and we have to correct that. And I'll tell you tonight some of the ways by which we will correct this trend. I want to make it clear that we cannot, we have to have many types of businesses, right? And the president is actually right. He's correct in trying to promote small family businesses. And I want to assure you that part of the Alliance's policy set is the continuation and the protection and guarantee of family businesses. But we recognize that we also need complementary large enterprises, large businesses. And I'll throw the challenge here tonight. I've been asking this question, but nobody has answered it for me. But I checked from 1992 to now, in 19 years, and I cannot see a major manufacturing business that started up in Guyana. Let's say something the scale of Banks DIH or BDL, right? So I can't think of any. I'd be glad if someone from the business community could correct me. Now, it is very important then that we have complementary and not competitive, right? So by complementary, I mean they will be able to have in agreements and contract agreements and outsourcing agreements with smaller businesses, okay? So if we can do this using men from different approaches and different directions, different types of businesses, well, then we can increase the private investment rate again and get the economy growing at the 7-8% that the Alliance Change is targeted. Now, why is 7% so important? Well, Rule 70 will tell you that if we grow at 7%, well then every 10 years people will be doubling their average income, right? That's why we want to. Granted that we know we will come up against certain walls, and we think 7-8% is a reasonable target. Anything over that means people getting richer faster, and when we talk in the quality growth. So what are some of the reasons for the slow growth? Well, income inequality. Inequality has increased, and I want to make it clear that again, I don't have any data to back that statement up. Okay. I want to be fair because I'm knocking the government that they don't have unemployment and GDP statistics for us on good numbers. So I don't have a Gini coefficient, for example. So I am saying I have a hypothesis that traveling around this country because I've been away to study and then I started teaching in Florida. But I come back 3-4 times a year. And my observation over the last 10 years is that there's an inequality in income, meaning there are pockets of developments, there are pockets of nice houses, surrounded by decrepit houses and villages and so on. So which tells me, at a cursory level at least, that inequality is increasing. And if you have inequality, well then not everyone will share in economic growth, and then, well then you cannot transform. So that's one of the reasons. One of my personal theses by studying Guyana is that in what I call the oligarchic control of contracts and private investors. I believe that the contract awarding system by the government is monopolized, and it should be made fairer and more competitive. And I believe that I believe the old the government is not being fair to traditional business people, and some of this was reported in the press. Of course, there has been a well-publicized battle between Mr. Padal and the president. I believe that if you are going to play favorites with some investor versus the other, local investors, I don't believe you're going to grow fast. We need to get everybody working. We need to get all heads pulling together. So that's one of my explanations. I believe another reason for the slow growth is the failure to bring in large-scale private investors. Now, you will say tonight, well, look, we brought in the Chinese to invest in bauxite. We brought in people to buy up existing assets. But those are not new investments. Those are what we call brownfield investments, meaning there's a transfer of ownership. It's not new. We're saying you might need that also. But you need foreign investors coming in creating totally new industries. Okay? And just to give you an example, it was reported in the Starbucks News that 9 ethanol investors from Brazil and India had expressed interest in manufacturing ethanol in Guyana. And this again is online. You can Google this and find this, or ask me. I'll send the link for you. And the government, up to this day, this was reported 3.5 years ago, has not responded to those investors. Well, something is kind of iffy here, in my opinion. So that's an example. One of it was a really large-scale Brazilian investment that they were interested in the Kanji Basin, I believe. They were thinking something around 350 million US investment. So that's what I mean by large-scale investments. We have to have those complementing the small enterprises. And I have to be honest with you here, I cannot think of any of, right now at the top of my head, of many other things that are better and more complementary to the existing business class in Guyana than for Guyana to go into ethanol manufacturing. Okay, very few things. It complements the society in many ways, especially the E10 policy that we have, which I'll tell you about later on. So another reason for this low growth was the inefficient sequencing and execution of public projects. Amelia Access Road. Those of you following the newspapers, you'll know. I know you're very good at this. It is a disaster. It's a travesty what's happening with the hydro project. Now, I want to tell you that there was not a feasibility study done, but contracts were being awarded already. Now, that is not good sequencing. That, to me, is not good economics. Now, we have a problem in this country where infrastructure being built now is breaking up again within a few years. And actually, a lecturer at the University of Guyana told me last night at a public meeting in New Amsterdam, Mr. Hackett, that check out the Chelly Jagan building, the new Chelly Jagan building at UG. That it's not operational anymore. It was built 6 years ago, and I'm like, are you serious? The Chelly Jagan building is no longer operational? They're going to close it. Apparently, it's falling apart. And this has been a trend throughout the country. And I think I have an explanation why that is so and what we'll have to correct. So, inefficient execution of government projects. I think the Skeldon factory should not have been built. And I wrote on this in the letter columns years ago. I wrote on this. For example, it was well known by the mid-1990s for anyone studying international economics. It was well known that the sugar agreement, the preferential price agreement with Europe would be compromised because of the new WTO that came on stream in '95. Okay? So there were going to be conflicts. And indeed, so because of that, what you want to do is perhaps not go deeper into sugar. But it doesn't mean we have to close the sugar industry down. Okay? It means to basically use this asset to produce alternative commodities, and one of which we are bullish on, ethanol, and other things. Okay? So, and today, it is clear for everyone to see the problem with the sugar factory. Okay? It's not producing capacity. It has major problems with the boilers.